Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with Bill Hudson to talk about NorthTale Eternal Flame, out November 12th on Nuclear Blast. How's it going? How's the tour going?
It's going great, man. To those watching, I'm actually on tour with Doro and Michael Schenker right now. Unfortunately, not with NorthTale. I wish I was. It's been great. I wasn't used to being on the road in Europe. I wasn't used to European weather, especially, you know. But man, it feels great. It really feels great to be back on the road. It's been too long, you know.
So let's get into NorthTale, and hopefully you'll get to play some shows with the band soon to promote this record. But until then, you have a new album coming out. New album, new singer. Is this a new NorthTale?
As far as I'm concerned, this is the first NorthTale. You know, the way I see it, man, the first album was kind of a learning curve. I can almost call it a demo because a lot of the songs that went into it, to be specific, 6 of them, 6 out of 12, they were demos. You know, we recorded them sort of as demos, and when the label signed us, we went ahead and, you know, kind of fully produced it. But I feel that some of the criticism that we got at the time for being generic, for being just straight up power metal, is correct, you know, because that was what that album was. Having the new singer allowed me to write sort of the music I wanted to write and experiment with the stuff I wanted to. You know, I wanted to bring in Brazilian music. I definitely wanted to bring in the heavier influences, the thrash metal, the death metal, because I like heavier stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. And the new singer being down to sing everything and be more of a team player has definitely allowed the band to go to a next level. And I feel like some of my favorite bands, they have a first album that's cool. It's a classic, but it's not as good as the second. That's kind of how I feel that we are. You know, to me, like, we haven't found our sound yet, but we found our way to play power metal, if that makes sense.
So having a new singer, having this new vision, how much did this impact your creative process coming into this album?
Oh, absolutely and completely, because like I said, you know, one of the issues I was running into with our old singer, who, by the way, I'm still a big fan of Christian. We have no personal issue, you know, like it literally was musical differences. It's not just an industry standard in this case. Christian didn't want to. There were certain things he didn't want to do. He didn't want to experiment with other styles. He didn't want to sing too high. He didn't want to bring in classical influences because he didn't want to be associated with the Twilight Fourth thing. Whereas my new singer was all about all of that, you know. So I would say around half of the album without the singer before I found him. So that too gave me a chance to experiment, you know, because I sing on my demos and my voice always sucks anyway. So whether I sound bad or worse didn't matter. I knew that I wanted the vocals to sound a certain way, you know. And it definitely, I mean, it was a 180 difference, you know. It's like, now I can experiment with this, and if it doesn't work, that's fine, but we can try.
I also felt like the first time that I pressed play on the record and I see the length of the album, I thought to myself, you have to be really creative on how you structure this record so that you don't lose the listener throughout the album experience, because it's a really long record. And you know, now new listeners, they have a really short attention span, and to sit through a long record becomes a little bit of too much to ask. I really like how you guys structure the album considering the length of the record. Now, how much time did you put into that, thinking about the right songs to go in the right order in order for this album to be engaging from the beginning all the way to the end?
That's a good point, and I'm glad that you noticed that, because I did put a lot of work into it, thinking of the newer listener that doesn't want to sit through a lot of things. Because quite honestly, man, I'm becoming one of those. You know, like, I feel that my brain is broken. I'll listen to albums that I loved that are long, but if there's a new album that's long, I can't really sit through it. You know, like, I have to do it over a couple of days. So I kind of thought that. So the first track, Only Human, for example, I didn't want to alienate the older fans because a lot of people were saying that, I doubt the new guy can be as good as your old singer. So I figured the first song could have been on the first album, you know what I mean? And any fans of the first album wouldn't think that's weird. But then track number 2, that's where everything changes, like, and I picked a song that starts with the piano, that starts with the singer singing soft, and then there's orchestrations. All of these elements that we didn't have before, all thrown into one song that comes right after the first. And then, okay, when the listener is like, okay, that was kind of cool, then we hit them again with another power metal song with Kai Hansen in it. So it was very much that. At every track, something new needs to happen, because if you have something new, something interesting needs to happen, because otherwise I'll lose people, and I don't blame them, because that's the age of information.
When I started listening to the album, outside of the structure, getting into the sound, it was undeniable that you guys changed a lot of things. I really like the Brazilian folk influences that the record has. I felt like there was also some prog influences, specifically on your solos. You took the solos a little bit further on some of these tracks. When you start to bring all of these influences and you're shedding that power metal skin and you're becoming a little bit more of a hybrid, what is your goal with that? Is it to have a bigger platform in terms of creative process and not be just narrowed down to one style, one approach?
Exactly. Because man, like I'll take the power metal title. A lot of people say that we're a power metal band, and I don't. I don't agree with that term. I never called Halloween or Stratovarius or Anger. I never called those bands power metal. I used to call it melodic metal. And melodic metal, I think, describes way better what I want to do. Because I can bring all these heavy riffs and influences as long as the vocals are melodic, as long as the leads are melodic. Like I'm all about melody. So if there's an intention, it's definitely to create a band that blends all of the influences that I have. I listen to Slayer, I listen to Shakira, I listen to Morbid Angel and Iron Maiden and Ed Sheeran. Like I listen to everything. So somehow, one thing or another, will always make its way into our music. And I think there's a. So with Welcome to Paradise, I wanted for that album to sound like it was done in '96. You know what I mean? With this one, I didn't. This one, I wanted to be like, okay, this is what in my opinion, modern power metal should be. It's not. There's a lot of bands that do something different, but that's what I think it should be. So it's just very personal. I'm not trying to prove a point or anything. It's just very personal.
I think you guys did a wonderful job in the sound of the record, because you have you can, when I'm listening to the album, you can see some of the influences coming into the forefront. You see some Stradivarius there. You see some Halloween. You see some Iron Maiden. You see all of these things coming into the forefront. Even some Dream Theater at some point in time, like I said, in your solos, which I really enjoyed your guitar solos on this record. So you start to see all of these influences. And when I started listening to the album, I'm thinking power metal, because that's what the previous record sounded to me through and through. And now this album seems more like just heavy metal, because it has a combination of all of these elements, but it makes the album feel more mature, more together, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I try to do. There's a lot of Maiden, there's a lot of Priest. I'm glad you caught the Dream Theater too, because that's subtle, but it is. John Petrucci was always one of my favorite guitarists. So I wanted to do that, just do a melodic metal record, no gimmicks, like that's important to me. It's not, I like some of the gimmicky bands, I'll listen to it, but sometimes I feel that their audience is more interested in dancing and dressing up, and that's not really what I want to do, And but again, it's not a statement. I'm not trying to tell. I'm not trying to be there. I'm not trying to criticize other things. I'm just trying to make the music that I enjoy, And
it's for you.
You hit the right nail in the head. It's just heavy metal, I'll take the power metal. I'll take the power metal title. You want to call us power metal? That's fine. But we don't think of ourselves as that.
I have to ask you about Eternal Flame. You touched a little bit on bringing some Brazilian influences into the mix. Now there's two Brazilian influences in the band, and you throw us Eternal Flame, which I thought was magnificent. Like at the beginning, I started hearing it, and I'm thinking I'm listening to Carlinhos Brown. That's kind of what I thought this song was going. And then suddenly it becomes like a power metal song, like it becomes a lot more driven. And then it goes back to it again, and then it goes away. Like, where did this whole started for you?
Okay, so I have to say, of all the interviews I've done, you're the first guy to bring up Carlinhos Brown. Even like the Brazilian reporters, nobody did. And even though I don't think I was inspired by him, he has done stuff with Sepultura. He has done stuff with metal. And that is a great reference. You know, that is a great reference. What I was trying to do with that song was, because I'm not the first one to do that. Angra has done that. Sepultura has done a little different, but they've also brought the Brazilian influence. The thing is, the song that so Land of Mystic Rites is based on one specific Brazilian tune. You know, it's the whole, everything I took from this one tune. Very traditional tune. It's like 100 years old. My grandpa used to sing a lot, so that's a song that I really like. But the first of all, the Brazilian rhythm is in 2/4. You know, so that alone makes a difference. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, suddenly you're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That alone makes people want to dance. You know, yeah. So, but that's it. You know, but at the same time, I was thinking we need a power metal, a straight up metal chorus. You know, like that people can remember and sing. We need a great solo. We need all those other elements, because otherwise it's too weird. You know, I'm not trying to be a folk band either, you know. Again, I'm a big fan of Elevate, but that's not what I was trying to do, like Brazilian Elevate or nothing like that. You know? So for the next album, I definitely want to push that a little further as well. You know, like I'm glad that the reaction to that song has been so good. Well, from the media, you know, because fans haven't heard it yet. Because that's, if I can choose, that's what we're gonna focus more on the next record.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Listening to the album, I felt like you guys really put a lot of effort, not just on the guitars, but on the keyboards, more so than in the previous album. Perhaps the previous album was more guitar-driven. This one, it was between you and the keyboards. Those two were like the pillars of the soundscape of this album. What are you trying to do with that in terms of not just having the spotlight on you and the guitars, but allowing the keyboards to play more of a predominant role?
Because I grew up as a big fan of Yngwie Malmsteen and Stradivarius, and I wanted that, you know, like the guitar keyboard thing. The first album, Jimmy, I feel that on the first album, Jimmy was kind of treating the band as my band. He was trying to do what he thought I wanted him to do. Because when I write the songs, I do write keyboards too, but they're ideas. I always make sure that people understand that they're ideas. You don't have to do that, you know. And this album, I think Jimmy got that a little better. Some of the songs I demoed without keyboards. So I just, you know, I would have maybe one line here or one thing, you know, hey, Jimmy, I really want to hear you play this here, but other than this, just do whatever the fuck you want, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and I really wanted a lot of piano, because Jimmy is an amazing piano player, and we didn't have any on the first album. Well, we had one song. You know? So I really wanted Jimmy to showcase, because I mean, yeah, I may be the leader of the band, but it's not a solo project anymore. You know, I have some fantastic musicians with me, and I really wanted them to shine. You know, and I think Jimmy, I mean, there's piano, there's Moog, there's Hammond. It's really complex keyboard wise.
Yeah, and it adds a lot of life to the sound. And another person that adds a lot of life to this album is Guilherme. I don't think you could have done this album. No knock on the previous vocalist, but I don't think you could have done this album with him, because Guilherme has a little bit more of a wide range and he goes into different places. And I felt the diversity of sound that this record has needed a guy like him in order to glue all of those pieces together and for the whole album to still feel like one solid record and not just like a compilation of songs. Do you feel the same way about his vocals?
Yes, absolutely. I had, before I had him in the band, I was working on the Brazilian song, kinda, but I didn't have it done. When he came in, I'm like, all right, that's the guy I need for this. Those chants, the Brazilian chants in the middle, he came up with that. That's all him. You know, like I gave him the guitar part, I gave him the percussion, and I'm like, do something here, you know. And he sends me that. I'm like, bro, holy shit, you know, like that's with the first singer we couldn't have done that because he, first of all, he wasn't too much into writing deep lyrics, which is another thing on this album that was important to me. There's no, I mean, there are still the self-help type of lyrics, go ahead and carry on, and you know, that kind of thing. But there's also historical lyrics about Brazil, there's lyrics about Brazilian religion, there's criticism to religion, there's man, well, Lena Mystic Rights, a Brazilian song, is straight up about being Brazilian. You know, it's just about how our life is in Brazil. So those were things that our previous singer wasn't into. What he liked to do was listen to the melody and write words that fit it. And at the end of the day, you just end up with, you know, like stuff that's okay. It's singable to the crowd and all that, but doesn't have a whole lot of that. And this singer, the new singer, was willing to work with me. We spent countless hours on Zoom working because he was in Brazil and I was here I was home during the pandemic. And I think you hit the nail in the head. You hit the nail in the head, fucking Brazilian. I couldn't have done it without him. I really couldn't, and he's well aware of that. You know, I've made that clear to him.
I find it amazing that you're saying this because when I was listening to the album, compared to the first one, the lyrics really hit me hard. Like this was an album that some songs I fell in love with, not just because of how the song sounded, but because of the lyrics that the track had. And that's not necessarily something normal that you see and with at least coming from the previous album to this album. Like Judas Be My Guide, that track, the lyrics on that track really hit home with me. And there was other songs as well. So I really appreciated the more depth that you guys went into as far as the lyrical content is concerned.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, man, because I was honestly wondering if that still made a difference. You know what I mean? I was wondering if people even cared. But then the way I saw it was, well, if they don't care, that's cool. That's, you know, I will write the lyrics that I want. You know, like track number 2 is about the Brazilian inventor of the airplane, which is a story that like we learn in Brazil in school. You know, like we're taught in school that a Brazilian invented the airplane. And then I moved to America and people are telling me the Wright brothers, and I never heard of the Wright brothers. So I'm like, what the fuck are they? You know, oh, they're the inventors of the airplane. I'm like, no, the inventor of the airplane is Alberto Santos Dumont. And then because we're not taught about the Wright brothers in Brazil in school at all, you know, like we don't hear about it. And I went and did my research, not thinking of writing a song. I just was curious about it because I was like, I wonder if like Brazilian education is that good at indoctrination that 250 million people think that's something that's not true. As it turns out, they are. As it turns out, they are. And the Wright brothers did do it first, but the Brazilian inventor did it better and more lush. He flew. The Wright brothers catapulted themselves and flew for like a couple seconds in a farm in Kansas City, 1901. Nobody saw that. And then a couple of years later, Santos Dumont, who was a fan of the Wright brothers, perfected the machine and flew around the Eiffel Tower. The entire press saw it, and everybody, you know, he became this celebrity because of that. And then he killed himself when he found out that the plans were being used in the war. You know, so to me that was an absolutely fascinating story, and I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't not talk about it when I read it.
We've talked about the vocals, we talked about the overall sound. I want to talk about your guitars. What approach did you take for this album? What was your game plan?
My game, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, like what was your game plan as far as the guitars for this record? We've talked about the sound, the vocals, how everything changed, but how much did you want to bring in different as far as your guitar approach or even sound is concerned?
Oh, well, first of all, I recorded with a real amp, you know, which, I mean, call me a boomer if you want, you know, but I didn't want to hear the Kemper in the studio. So I recorded with a real amp and reamped with a real amp. you know, like with the same gear. So that alone, you know, what you're hearing in the room, pushing sound in the room, that alone, you know, made a huge difference. So that was the main thing, that I wanted to use different guitars. I have a
You know what's funny? This is got to be, we got to explain this to the folks watching right now, because you're in a different background. I'm in a different background. I think this is the only interview that I've ever done that started before the concert and it's finishing after the concert.
Yeah, I even put on the same t-shirt so it wouldn't look so weird. and right now I'm in the bus too. I was in the kitchen. I was hiding in the kitchen because, you know, there was sound check.
This has been absolutely hilarious. So like, just letting people know, you're on tour with Doro, you're playing a bunch of shows in the UK,
right.
and we started off with you backstage before sound check. Your battery on your phone died. You had sound check to do, and now we're continuing it after the show. By the way, how was the show?
It was awesome, man. I gotta say, I always said before that the UK was my least favorite place to tour because I never had like that great of experiences here. But this tour is awesome. We're playing all the O2 venues, you know, so it's like 2,000 to 2,500 people, and it's been awesome. This show was great. It was great too. Of course, we're supporting Michael Schenker, but there's still a lot of Doro fans. You know, there's all the females in the front row are there for Doro. It's very interesting.
All right, so let's get back into NorthTale and pick up where we left off. We were talking about your guitars, where you were talking about the amps and what you used for the sound on this album. I want to kind of follow up from that and ask you, is that something that you're going to continue going forward, considering how good the sound on the guitars came across on this record?
Dude, yeah, you know, I don't like to be like an old guy or come across that way. You know, like the guitar community has largely moved on to the modelers, and at this point, even the people that use them kind of make fun of people that don't. Just the other day, I saw people say stuff on Facebook like, "Oh, why would you lug that heavy of an amp? You know, you can have just crispy digital sound." And that's true to an extent, man, but it just does not sound the same. You know, it just does not. Now, if you the thing is, of course, in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I used the X effects. With Udo, we use some sort of digital thing too. But I mean, those are tours where you have a full crew, you have people making sure everything sounds great. You know, so with NorthTale, even live, I wanna move on and start using real amps. I don't care if it's harder to lug. That's why I have a tech. You know, and it's like it just sounds better, man. It's the push of the sound. And yeah, I own a camper. I own I own a lot of digital stuff, you know, and I tried plugging it into the cabin, but it's not the same. It's just not, you know, like the feel is not the same, and the sound is not the same either. Like people, I remember when the Line 6 stuff came out, and everybody was like, "Sounds like a real amp," you know. No, it doesn't. But the camper, I mean, I love it. I'll use it for the ease. But if I can help you with NorthTale, I'll be using real amps, man. Because on the album, it's funny that you bring it up too. Because on the first album, I used the camper for everything. You know, I just recorded at home and all that. And I wasn't happy with the final result. You know, I don't like my guitar sound on the first album. Not really. No, I mean it's all right, but it's not. I don't think it stands out like it does on the new one.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
And I recorded at home with an amp. I don't know if I said it before we had to take a break, but I recorded at home with a real amp. It was an EVH, the 50-watt head, which I don't endorse. You know, I just have one, and I have a 212 cab, not a 412, just a 212. So it was right in front of me, you know. And then I know that when Dennis, our producer, reamped, he used a very similar type of gear. You know? So it's almost like I played it like in his room. But I mean, I'm so happy with that sound. I wish I could take that on the road.
Was there a song on this record that proved to be a little bit difficult to get to where you wanted it to be?
Yeah. The Brazilian song, first of all, because the other guys are not Brazilian. You know, the bass player, the drummer, the keyboard player, they were I'm not gonna say they were completely lost, but they're like, how the fuck, you know, like how does this go? Like I had to send them the original Brazilian tunes and then videos of Brazilian musicians playing that kind of style just to get them. It's just a different feel and groove, you know. So the Land of Mystic Rights gave us a little bit of a hard time. Nature's Revenge for the sheer length of it. Also, you know, that song took a long time. I took a long time to be happy with the orchestrations in the middle. So, but I mean, nothing was super hard. You know, it was just a lot of trial and error, if that makes sense.
When it comes down to recording an album, what do you enjoy the most about the process, and what do you absolutely hate the most? Like, if you could outsource that part, you would outsource it to somebody else.
Oh, recording rhythm guitar, because it's the hardest thing. You know, like any when you hear a guitar player say, "Oh man, all my solos were hard to play," you know that that guy is not paying attention to the right things. You know, the rhythm is the most important thing, and it has to be tight. But it's not just tight. You know, it's not mechanically tight. It's just gotta sound right. And sometimes, a lot of times, I play something and it's in time, it's perfect, but it doesn't sound right. You know, like rhythm. I think rhythm guitar is way harder to record than anything. And if I could outsource, and sometimes I do. I have a friend who I didn't know NorthTale, but sometimes when I'm doing my demos, I have a friend who loves playing rhythm guitar recording, and I just sent it to him. Like I sent him videos of me playing, and he would send me back. I'm like, yes, that's what I meant. But not on the NorthTale record. I wouldn't do that. The rhythm guitar, I would definitely outsource if I could. And also, well, I do outsource that. It's finding the right drum sound. I have no idea, you know, like I that the drum sound to me is the hardest thing to achieve because it's very easy to sound like a drum machine. You know? And to some people, it's even desirable. But when you're doing the kind of music I am, and you want to not sound like a drum machine, that takes a lot of work. You know, takes a lot of trial and error and stuff. Sometimes you added things and they're too tight, so you have to go back. So, but to be honest, man, I enjoy being in the studio. I enjoy recording. There's not a whole lot that I don't like about recording.
What's your favorite side of things? Is seeing the final product, or just like working with the guys and going through the process?
My favorite thing is was recording with audio movers with our producer Dennis Ward because I didn't know what that was. You know, audio movers, for those who don't know, it's a software that's called Audio Movers Listen to, and what you do is you stream audio in real time, and it's literally real time. It's not quite. It's like 0.03 delay, but it's pretty much, you know. So as opposed to we all recording our parts at home and then sending it to a producer to mix, we had the producer during the recording, you know. So he was right there. Hey, play that part again. Do that differently, you know, just like if he was sitting in the room with us. He was doing it from Germany, and that technology is so crazy that we're looking at the guy on FaceTime, right? We're hearing through the studio monitors, but we're looking at it through at him through FaceTime. He'll say something. We hear it in the monitors before FaceTime. You know, that's how fast that is. Wow. And that was, man, I mean, I will definitely be doing this probably for every record I ever do. Even if we are able to get together, nothing beats the comfort of doing solos at my house. You know, like doing the solos and having the producer right there with me be like, oh, I don't like that, try that. You know, like that I that was the learning about that was my favorite thing for sure about this recording.
One last question for you, because I know, I mean, it's been a long day for you, man. Like I said, we started the interview before the show, you played a show, and now here we are. So it's been a long day for you. One last question is, what's next for NorthTale? I know you had a European tour scheduled with Unleash the Archers. That kind of had to be put on hold because of COVID. Are you thinking about some perhaps US tour, considering now that you can tour in the US, maybe Canada? What do you have in mind?
You know, we have Prog Power USA for June 2nd. That's the only show that's confirmed that we have, and we're trying really hard to get on another tour. We are with Continental Touring, Steph Milou and Maurizio Iacono. They're all bookers here here in the U.S., or there in the U.S., I should say. And we are trying to book something maybe around Prague Power, you know, like some stuff. I would really like to come. I would really like to play. I think I'm not afraid to say this, man. I think the US and Canada's always been better, so I can't even include Canada here. I kind of have to say just the US. I think the US is the next big market for this genre, and because it never was, you know what I mean? The US, and sorry, American fans, that's just true. The US is very trendy in pretty much every aspect.
Everything.
Even metalheads in the US are trendy. You know, even metalheads all cut their hair the same way. There's no like true metal attitude, if you know what I mean. You know, it's all how do you wear your hair? What kind of bands you listen to? And power metal was always the antithesis of that. You know, power metal was always like just dudes playing. You know, there was no gimmick. There was no until, you know, even when Rhapsody came out. You know, I remember when Rhapsody came out, I took that seriously. I thought it was more. I didn't think there was an element of irony in it, which is what bothers me about all these bands. You know, it's like, we're so epic, like it's a funny thing. You know what I mean? And I'm not down with that. I never liked it. I never liked the irony thing. And I think with Sabaton getting so big, I mean, dude, I have a lot of death metal friends who have no idea who Halloween is, and these guys are coming up to me being like, "You ever heard this band Sabaton?" You know, so when you see death metal guys, metalcore guys talking about Sabaton, talking about, you know, Glory Hammer or whatever, it tells me that there is a market, because I mean, it's obvious. How much lower can you tune your guitar? How much more can you talk about how you're gonna fuck shit up in the pit and nobody can bring you down? You know, like people are just sick of that. You know, and I think. I honestly think, like, in the 90s it never happened, but I think now, because of the internet, you know, you can share. That's how stuff is, you know, that it doesn't get big organically by people buying records. It was never like that. So I feel like right now is the time to do that, you know, and I would love to play for. Well, I mean, Unleash the Archers is biggest proof. You know, you bringing that up.
I was going to say that. Yeah. They've blown up. They're one of the most popular bands right now, and they're selling out. They're headlining tours, selling out shows in North America, U.S. and Canada. And I think that goes towards what you're saying. Like, there's a shift. There's a slight shift in taste that's going towards bands more like that. You know.
Yes, and I saw Unleash the Archers in Orlando, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I don't think Gamma Ray would get this many people, you know. So I think, and Unleash the Archers, I mean, they don't really have a gimmick, you know. Yeah, they may have a female singer, which nowadays is kind of a gimmick, but she just happens to be a girl. Like, she's not using her femininity to sell records.
I agree 100%.
You know, she could be a guy. No disrespect, Brittany, you know, but she could be a guy, and great. Proof that I'm in a tour bus. My lights just went up. Don't edit this out, man, because that's a real rock and roll.
This is the real rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Unleash the Archers is blowing my mind. Like, what, you know, like these people that had no idea who Halloween or Stratovarius was, buying Unleash the Archers records and wearing their shirts. I mean, to me, that tells me that there's a shift in taste. And because it's also a whole new generation, you know, like these 22-year-old kids today weren't around in 2003 listening to Killswitch Engage, you know, to them is new. And I kind of always predicted that. I always thought that at some point, everything would get so heavy, so slow, so that we're just gonna go the other direction. And I think Unleash the Archers is the beginning of it. I think there are some very shitty bands that are also getting attention, but that's good. You know, that's good. No scene ever develops without a lot of bands. You know, because if you think of hair metal or metalcore, anything, one band gets big, then all these other bands follow suit. and I'm seeing that happen, you know. And it's funny too, because like, I'm not gonna mention names, but like some of these bands in the US that call themselves power metal, they're not really playing power metal. They're playing metalcore without screams, is what they say. They writing trivial music with a girl singing. And but they're calling it power metal, is the point. You know what I mean? The more that happens, the more I see that happening, the more I see people, the more I think, oh, dude, that's the next big thing. That's the next big thing, you know. And if we can do US shows, I definitely want that. And you know, I hope the American fans listening to this don't think that I'm, you know, being an asshole about it, but it's just, you know, it's just a long time in the business seeing how things develop. You know, I saw metalcore come and go. Actually, I saw new metal first come and go. I saw metalcore come and go. Now I'm seeing gent go. You know, I saw gent come, and now gent is on his way out. What's next? You know, like, we need some melody, we need some depth in the lyrics. You know, how many times can you say that the man can bring you down? You know?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think the next step for the next NorthTale album is you doing some breakdowns.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna do breakdowns, and before the breakdown, we're gonna stop and have a scream like,
exactly.
That's the next NorthTale album.
When that happens, hell has frozen over. Let me
absolutely.
Hell has frozen
if you
over.
ever hear me doing hell froze over. I'll never do that.
100%. Bill, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. It always is. I always love chatting with you about your music, about everything that you're doing. You're like a stand-up dude. I mean, like, you're like my brother from another mother. I have nothing but love for you and everything.
Likewise, man. I always appreciate the opportunity that you gave me. You know, like, you've talked about NorthTale, your show. You talked about our Ed Sheeran cover. We've done interviews before, and you are. Yeah, I'm not even like kissing your ass. Like, you're one of my favorite people, like, right now in the scene, people to talk to. We chat all the time, right?
Yeah, we talk all the time.
Like,
I always love talking to you about music, about everything that you're doing. So I really want to say thank you for you having this hectic schedule and taking some time between after show, before the show, to talk about NorthTale. The album is going to come out November 12th on Nuclear Blast, Eternal Flame. I'm one of the lucky ones that has the pleasure of listening to it already. Don't miss it. This album has a lot to give. It's a really incredible record for a sophomore album. You guys delivered a magnificent record.
Thank you so much, brother. That means a lot to me. Because I know you're honest. Well, you're known for your honesty on music, you know.
No, I'm serious. So, like, I liked your debut record, but this one leaves the debut record in the dust. So
thank you. That makes me happy.
Because it's what you want from a follow-up album, and this record to me felt more complete. It had a lot more. It wasn't as cookie cutter, if you will. It wasn't a one size fits all. It had a lot more things for me to digest. And that allows me to stay engaged with the record all the way through. Do you know what I mean? Because it doesn't become boring. It doesn't become repetitive. No breakdowns, but you know what? Next record.
Yeah, next record. Yeah. You know what? In Nature's Revenge, we have something that's almost a breakdown. You know, like when Mary Zimmer does her growling vocals, it's almost a breakdown. There's the slow drums, the stops, and all that. But that's as
close as you're gonna get. As close as you're gonna get.
Yeah.
All right, Bill.
Do you have a favorite song before we go?
I really like Eternal Flame because
nice.
of the Brazilian influence. Me being Portuguese, I grew up listening to a lot of Brazilian like folk guys like Carlinhos Brown. I'm a huge fan, you know, of him, of everything that he's done outside of metal, with metal, like everything. I like Brazilian music in general, even some of the more like stuff from the Roça, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, I like the folky stuff. So that song was specifically one that really spoke out to me.
Okay.
And the opening track, which was the single that we did on the channel, because it was just a straight up power metal track, and it was a great way to get the record started. I thought you guys, with that song, kind of continue where you left off with the previous album, allowing the fans to kind of get engaged with this record. And then you start throwing the kitchen sink at us afterwards.
Exactly.
So those two songs for me are perhaps the two that stand out. Judas Be My Guide would be my third one, because
But that's a cover. You're aware that that's a Maiden cover?
Oh, I didn't know that was a Maiden cover.
Yeah, that's a Maiden cover. It's an obscure. It's not B-side, but it's a song from Fear of the Dark, and it happens to be a song they never played live. You know,
No wonder
so
it sounded a little bit Iron Maiden to me when I was listening to the record.
Oh yeah, it sounds it's a song that they never played live. Our drummer Patrick is really good friends with Nico, and he says that Nico said that they never played because they couldn't find the groove, like, you know, a good groove to play live. So I mean, we didn't either. We did it in the studio, you know. So I that's one of my favorite Maiden songs, you know. And so, but yeah, that's a cover. So they're better songwriters than I am. That's why you like that song.
Well, but the fact that you guys made that cover sound like it's one of your own also says a lot about it. Yeah,
we tried that. Thank you so much, brother.
No problem.
That review means a lot to me.
No problem. My pleasure, man. All the best with the rest of the tour, and we'll chat again when you get back to this side of the Atlantic.
I hope so, my friend. Thank you.
Take care, man. Bye.
Take care.